Hi, this is Zach from Worn&Wound. Today I'll be taking a look at the Davosa Vanguard. This is a pretty new watch from the brand that I think is, personally speaking, my favorite that I've seen by them. It's got a really cool dress casual design with a distinct kind of mid-century aesthetic. I think they really nailed a lot of different things about this watch, from the case design to the texturing on the dial, and it comes in at a really nice price too. So this watch is $774. That includes a sapphire crystal, an ETA 2892 automatic movement, and it's Swiss made and just very nice all around. So let's take a closer look. The case of the Vanguard is really nicely designed. It's simple, but it's refined, fairly elegant, and yet I still think it's kind of a nice masculine design that works well for both a dress and a casual watch. It measures 40 millimeters in diameter, about 45 millimeters lug to lug, and is quite thin at 9 millimeters tall. So it's a medium-sized watch. I think it's larger than a dress watch really typically is, or a vintage watch would be, which let's say 36 to 38. But I think it's very well proportioned, having a shorter lug-to-lug length. So it fits nicely. It doesn't look large at all. And I think that also contemporizes a little bit and perhaps makes it, ride a little bit between casual and dress a little bit more easily. The design itself is also just very elegant. So clearly you have kind of a circular central area with these thin, straight lugs coming off of it. What's nice though about it, it's a little hard to tell from here, but the case itself is entirely sloped or rounded. So there isn't really, it's not a slab-sided case. And that just makes it have kind of a gentler look to it that I think kind of contributes perhaps to it looking a little bit smaller than the diameter really is. And it just gives it a nice flow and kind of a nice feeling to it. The finishing on the case also works towards that, as the central case is all satin brushed, but then the bezel here is polished, and the case back, which is a display case back as you can see, is also polished. And from the side, you can see a little bit of the case back as well as the bezel. So it just has, a nice play with light, a little bit more, kind of a refined, elegant look to it. The crown that they put on here is also just, I think, the perfect crown really for this case. So it's a 6 millimeter wide crown by about 2.25 millimeters thick. So it's wide and fairly flat, but it also has a rounded design like the case itself. So it kind of reflects the shape. It's sort of basically like a little onion crown. I think it's a really elegant design. It feels nice in your hand, and it's just well executed. So you can see on the side here, on the face of it, it has the Davosa star logo, which I think is actually a nice little mark of theirs. And that's a polished star within a really deeply set matte satin finish, or rather etched finish. So yeah, it's just a very nicely decorated, well thought out, and detailed crown. Overall, just a very nice design, and it's just unique enough, I think, to make this watch kind of shine a bit. The dial of Davosa Vanguard speaks to mid-century design. I think if you look at watches from the mid-60s, you'll see a lot with kind of a similar motif going on. And I think back then, those watches would have been kind of casual to dress watch. It's just like a formal watch, whereas now this sort of look is a little bit dressier. But I think Davosa did a good job of staying true to that element of the design. So this watch isn't too dressy for daily kind of fun wear, but it isn't too casual to be inappropriate for an office or anything like that. And what they did to achieve that is have a kind of a clever but restrained mix of texturing and finishing throughout to just have a kind of a unique look. So starting with the back surface here, the watch is available in white or black, but both feature this interesting pinstripe guilloche pattern. I've never seen a watch with this type of patterning before. Typically guilloche is more elaborate, more decorative, but this is kind of reserved and straightforward, and I really like it. I think it does a good job of breaking up the surface, creating something a little bit more dynamic, but also maintaining kind of a nice masculinity to it. The main index then on the watch is this applied steel block index. It's clearly no numerals around here, and each of these little blocks, and they're pretty tall, has polished beveled edges on it, and then a brushed top surface. So what you get are little kind of glimmers of light as the watch moves around, and those are coming off of the polished edges. The brushed top surface then is more restrained and has a nice kind of, a subtle glimmer, but definitely not too strong. And I think when you kind of look at that with the pinstripe background, it has a really nice combination. It kind of makes you think of like cufflinks on a shirt, and it's just it's masculine, but it's not too decorative, anything like that. Around the outer edge of the watch is then a minute index, and as you can see, the pattern actually stops on the edge, so you have a kind of a clean white printed on this solid black area. And then on the outside of each of the hours are these split rectangles, and in each of those rectangles is actually black lume. So there is lume at night or in the dark. Black lume never really works well. I haven't seen it work too strongly on any watch, but it is nice that it's present and it was integrated in such a way as to not interfere with the design. And then the actual little split shapes there I happen to like. I also like that this index perhaps adds a little bit more of a casual side to the watch, definitely more so than the applied markers, just kind of adding to the versatility of the design. Coming in at 3 now, you have a window here, and the date is presented as black on white. I often harp on brands for not kind of matching the dates to the dials, and I think obviously, there's an exception to every rule. It's not, always true. I think given the mid-century look of this watch, it is more appropriate to have it like this. I also don't find it to be too obstructive to the dial at all. That said, I don't know if this dial needs a date. I think it actually might have been a little bit more striking just without one, given the success of that gouache pattern. But it's there. It doesn't bother me at all. You can't argue with having the functionality of a date. On the dial itself, there's also a little bit of text. You have a big Davosa logo here under 12, and then automatic above 6. The logo itself, I don't mind. It's a bit large. I happen to like the look of their logo, though. What does trouble me a little bit is that it's on a negative area, so clearly they had to clear the pinstriping to print that. And the negative area itself is quite large, as there's these little lines, and it had to basically be a whole block. I wish that had just been restrained a little bit, because I like the gouache pattern a lot, and that just breaks it up. As you can see around automatic, it's kept much tighter, so that's much less disruptive. Lastly, looking at the hands of the watch, there's, hour and minute hand are both fence post style, and they're both brushed steel with black lume filling. Here I really, really like how the black lume works as just, aesthetically, regardless of the quality of the lume itself. The black integrates it with the dial. I think it has a cool look, almost a utilitarian look that's a bit unexpected on this watch, but I think works quite nicely. And then the second hand here is also brushed steel. The brushed steel itself is a very cool addition on the hands, very cool detail. Obviously it works with the markers, but it just keeps everything a little bit more subdued and just makes it, once again, working on that casual dress theme. On the wrist, the watch wears very, very nicely. The 40 millimeter diameter, which might be a little bit large for a contemporary dress watch, I think actually wears smaller than 40 millimeters because that really measures kind of from the apex of the radius. And since it's curved and the lug to lug width is short, I feel like it wears closer to a 38. But it's just overall very nice. It's well proportioned, so it just makes sense all around. It's also very thin. It's one of the really nice features of this watch and one of the real design successes is that it's only 9 millimeters thin. So as you can see, it sits just very flat on the wrist, making it very comfortable, easily fits under a sleeve. And that's really nice, I think, especially for an automatic, which, 9 is very thin for an automatic movement. The look of the watch too is just so great. It's like really successful. I personally like vintage watches a lot, so I'm very drawn to this type of aesthetic. And I think that they really achieved it here and did something a little bit unique as well. So the applied markers really feel 60s, but then the pinstripe gouache is just a unique feature that it's just Davosa, and it just makes it kind of its own thing. As you can see, I'm wearing a striped shirt, and I think the matching, match kind of contrast even of the pinstriping to the striping is just cool. It's fun. It's nice to have another element of texture to play with but one that is kind of straightforward and simple but successful. The watch comes with 3 different leather straps, which is another really cool feature of it, another great value adder of the watch. And this one is perhaps the most casual design. It's a honey brown leather, 20 millimeter lugs, by the way. But this honey brown leather, I think, does a really good job of kind of bringing out, bringing out the black, if you will. I mean, it kind of makes the watch stand out a little bit more. But it's a really nice strap. I love the texturing of it, the kind of variation in light and dark patterning on it. But the watch, like I said, comes with 3 straps, so we'll show you the other 2 now. A slightly more formal but still fun option is this gray nubuck that it comes with. It's actually a really beautiful strap. It's got great texturing in it, a lot of variation in color. You can still see kind of the whole grain of it. It's really kind of beautiful, and it has a nice soft feel to it as well. And then on the watch itself, I think it's just much more subdued. It gives it a more kind of a controlled look, so perhaps is a little bit more formal, but still very nice and very successful. Lastly is the most formal option, which is this black faux croc strap. Once again, the quality of the strap itself is quite nice, though as is the case, I think, often with kind of faux croc straps, there's a little bit of a plasticky feel to the surface itself. But you can see here, much more conservative look, just keeps it very kind of toned down, definitely kind of the dress watch option for the Vanguard. To wrap up, the Davosa Vanguard, I think, is a really successful new offering from the brand, and definitely my personal favorite of the watches that I've seen by them. I think the kind of mid-century aesthetic that they've achieved is really just spot on. It's very attractive. It definitely makes the watch a bit unique. And then the use of the interesting pinstripe patterning on the dial actually makes the watch just quite a bit different from anything I've seen before. And in a way that is, it's not over the top. I like that. It's a subtle detail that just gives it a little bit of personality, yet the watch is still very wearable. It's not weird in any way. Lastly, I think the little things about the watch are just really well achieved. I really, really like the case design, the rounded sides. That's extremely thin. There's a domed sapphire crystal. At a 2892 movement in there. Really solid movement. Not going to go wrong with that. And the price of $774 is just I think speaks for itself rather. Just a great price for what you're getting, and you're really actually getting quite a lot. So please read the full review on Worn&Wound. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and Twitter. Thank you.